Here we go.
Well, hello there, you amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. I hope you're all well on this terrific Tuesday. This is video 2 of God knows how many. I don't even know how many. All I know is that notifications on YouTube are not brilliant. So whereas I was using that to kind of think, you know what, there's not a lot of point in publicly letting out certain videos because you probably won't see them, I'm beginning to think, you know what, screw it. Let's just do as many videos as we can, and those who see them, those who don't, you can always come to the channel and search if you don't get notified. The videos will be there. So I do multiple videos a day. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell because they sometimes work. And let's get straight into the meat and potatoes. As for video 2 today, we are going back over into Moscow, Idaho, because I have some things to bring to your attention, right? Because I think people are really struggling with this Idaho 4 case. And look, I get it, because there's so much information and there's a lot of confirmation bias as well. We've got a group of people who truly believe Bryan Kohberger did it, but still, they are coming to me and they're saying, yeah, I know Bryan Kohberger did it, and then they offer some just absolute drivel as a excuse to say that he did the crime. Then you've got the people who are kind of in the middle, which are probably the most sensible ones. I'd like to say that I'm in the middle, but slightly leaning over to he has no involvement whatsoever. I don't believe that this crime was done by just one person, and that's the biggest issue here. And I believe that the 2 surviving roommates have been used by the investigators in order to steer this in a certain direction and kind of pass all the blame onto them. And I'll tell you for how, right? So right from the beginning, law enforcement had kind of said that the timeline of this is based on them. The communications that seemingly happened during this crime between these 2 individuals. So that's red flag number 1 to me, that you're basically saying we're determining when this happened based on these 2 individuals, what we've learned through them, what they've told us, and what we've managed to distinguish through their phone records. So again, that's red flag number 1 really, because when do you really... How can you look at people dying inside a house, right? And instead of... and I've raised this before. If this were 2 blokes in this house, would we be in the same position as we are now? Or would they have been hauled over the coals? Now, I'm not saying they weren't hauled over the coals, but it doesn't appear that they were. What it appears is that one is being heavily protected, so nobody can get to them. And this person, being Bethany Funk, it's been alluded to that she could potentially have exculpatory evidence, which I still stand by the fact that I believe the exculpatory evidence is that she saw someone or something or persons at a different time in the evening. Or she certainly saw something that differed from what we're being told in the PCA with respect of what Dylan Mortensen said. And did you notice I got both of them names right today? Yes, I did yesterday get these 2 names muddled up. But if you'd have paid attention, I did correct it on screen. But I appreciate that some people listen while they're doing things, not necessarily watch. But yes, I did get them wrong yesterday. I'm only human and getting old. 45 in 2 weeks' time. I know I haven't told you before, but it is my birthday soon. So look, what other issues do we have? And I've got some notes on here, which have been sent over by my man Eddie, right? Because me and Eddie, we go over this, right? And no, I'm not Eddie. It's been said that I was perhaps Eddie. So what do we know, right? With respect of Bryan Kohberger. Well, we know that it's being suggested that Bryan Kohberger wasn't in the area. He actually wasn't in the area. There's no proof that places him in the area, despite many people, like I say, yesterday, people saying phone pings, you're ignoring phone pings. There are no phone pings that places Bryan Kohberger at the property. No, none whatsoever. And the image of the car that they're saying is Bryan Kohberger's is facing in the opposite fucking direction. It's not even facing in the direction to come here. So, first of all, when you think, right, so there's an absence of proof that he was in the area. You've also got statements by the prosecution themselves that seemingly suggest that he was away from the property. He was within the area of a cell tower that serviced. Now, that could have just been, service 1122 King Road. Now, that could have just been an error in verbiage, I guess. But what they seem to be suggesting is that he simply wasn't at the property. He was in the vicinity of a tower that serviced the property. But anyone with any kind of brain will understand that he could have, to be in the radius of the tower transmitting, he could be at home and still be classed as captured in Moscow, Idaho, because of the sheer range of these towers at 25 square miles. But the point being, what do we have? What places Bryan Kohberger at the scene of the crime? Because it would appear that we have nothing. So then it brings you to believe, right, so why are they even investigating Bryan in the first place? Why is he being investigated? But again, you're back to this, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Did the DNA truly lead to Bryan Kohberger and his name? Or did they have his name and they went and got DNA just to concrete their case against him? But what led them to look at Bryan Kohberger in the first place? What actually led that? And that brings you to a tip-off. Someone tipped law enforcement off about Bryan Kohberger. They gave law enforcement Bryan Kohberger's name. And I will say this until the cows come home. I don't believe any investigation whatsoever led to Bryan Kohberger. I believe that somebody gave law enforcement Bryan Kohberger's name, or they just had his name because of some other reason. I don't know why. Maybe they had his details on file, maybe so. But this wasn't an investigation leading to Bryan Kohberger. Because again, at the moment, we've got a scenario, and this is going to get worse in a second. This is going to get worse. Because not only that, so you have no evidence of him being at the property. Now, I know there's a knife sheath. And there is DNA on the knife sheath. But there are issues with the knife sheath DNA as well. Because we share, as human beings, 99.999995% of our DNA with every other person on the planet. We're all the same. It's just that 0.1% where the differences are that makes us who we are, the differences. The differences are in that minute subsection of the DNA. And they have already stated that the DNA was partial and ambiguous. That was an argument that was brought up about the DNA. And why is that? It's because in these minute pieces of DNA, there is still only, about a 50% share value between a person's mother and father. So you're constantly chopping away at this DNA in order to get a match. So it's not like this DNA is 100% accurate. And you can 100% guarantee that this went through the entire process and generated Bryan Kohberger's DNA. It doesn't work that way. You are just looking at a small fraction of DNA and pairing that with other people's DNA, which are fractional as well. So you've got a partial match. You've got a partial match, so they extrapolate from that partial match and say, right, we believe that this is Bryan Kohberger. There's a 99.9999995% chance. But then in this post, we've got this, right, which I'll put on the screen. It says, scientists already know how much shared DNA is expected for a given familial relationship, so they can use the data from the test to determine the likelihood of two people being related and the possible relationships between them. Based on how much DNA they share, more shared DNA generally indicates a closer relationship. For example, a parent and their child will share around 47.5% to 50% of their DNA, while grandparents and grandchildren, aunts and uncles and nephews and half-siblings share about 25%. So what we're saying is, it's not 100% match. There's just these shared values in this section that is different from what we all share as individuals. So at best, again, this is a partial match. It's a partial match. Now, I'm not saying that this is 100% not Bryan Kohberger's DNA, but what I'm struggling with is a situation that relies on we're going to do something. We're not going to tell you how we do it. We're not going to show our workings. Yes, it's arguable. You're just going to have to trust us. They start throwing out into the public that we've got a 99.9999% match. We've got, it's 5 point something octillion chances, which is, again, is smoke and mirrors. Absolute smoke and mirrors to make the public believe that this is a fucking slam dunk, while simultaneously people are ignoring how they got here in the first place. Because if you read into the paperwork, then Bryan Kohberger, he wasn't at the property. There's no proof or evidence of him being there. Nothing whatsoever. And then not only that, but off the back end of that information, we then find out that not only is the prosecution themselves placing Bryan Kohberger away, but you've also now got a situation where you've got at least 3 other samples of DNA in the property, which I've got this other piece here to read, right? And again, this is going to get worse. So it says, the fact of this and this is from the court documentation, the fact of this match made by Coda's system is considered Brady material because it provides possible avenues of investigation of other suspects in the case. Given the subjective nature of mixture interpretation, it is reasonable to believe that the other experts might disagree with whom actually is the candidate. And in this case, in which the profile is issue is ambiguous and partial, which again, this is talking about Bryan Kohberger's DNA sample and how you come to the conclusion that it's him. It is ambiguous, it is partial, and what they're saying here is that you have other DNA on site that you're ignoring. So it could be argued that you've got a partial and ambiguous DNA sample at the scene that you're saying is my client's. You've got no supportive information whatsoever that places him at the scene of the crime, and in fact you're placing him away from it. And you've got 3 people, 3 DNA samples that you're hiding from people, that you're burying, and here is the twist. This is the twist of the knife, no pun intended. But this is now where you look at what they're doing with Bethany and Dylan. They're blocking they're blocking Bethany Funk from people obtaining access to her because it's very likely that she saw something that differed from Dylan Mortensen. 100%. If they were on par with one another and were talking about the exact same things, why wouldn't you include both of their statements side by side in the PCA to bolster it, especially when it's been proven that you've twisted the fucking facts to do it in the first place? So if you've got actual facts in there, why not use them instead of lying in it and twisting and manipulating the truth? And then, to caveat it all, you then rubbish your own witness. You then turn around and say that your witness, who you originally used to determine who Bryan Kohberger was, you come out and say that she's got memory issues and she can't really be trusted, which leaves the massive question, the $1 million question, is why would the prosecution publicly decimate the credibility of their own witness? The person who, at the beginning of this video, we said the whole timeline is based on, and Bryan Kohberger, and saying that bushy eyebrows and this, and saying that is Bryan Kohberger, and how all this panned out, why? And I can't help but think, and my man Eddie can't help but think, that they are discrediting their own witness. So in the event that she then turns around and says something different because she didn't see what we've been led to be seeing, or she then starts to side with, or her memory comes back and says, actually, there was 2 people, there was more than one person, or I heard 2 different voices, there is no credibility to her. There is absolutely no credibility to her whatsoever, because they have said publicly that she can't remember, and that will always be their argument now. She just can't be trusted. So she will never be able now to tell the truth if she was leveraged upon originally to come up with this story, this version of events. And maybe the other one just said, I'm not going to lie. Bethany Funk turned around and said, I'm not going to lie. Or her parents say, I'm not lying at all. So they say, well, all right, don't lie, but keep your fucking mouth shut. Don't say anything. If you're not willing to go along with this story, then don't say anything. Yeah, we agree to that. We'll walk away. We will walk away. Look, I know half of this is tinfoil hat, but you can't deny it. There was nothing placing Bryan Kohberger at this property. There are no phone pings. They're saying that he wasn't near the property. He was away from the property. The car has not correctly been identified. The car that they believe to be Bryan Kohberger's is facing in the opposite fucking direction. And lo and behold, they don't have any other footage that offers a backup to what they're claiming was his route of travel. They don't have it. It's inexistent. And the information that they've pushed forward to give you a path of travel is missing the time data analysis as per SEE. So even that could be exculpatory if they had it. Because again, they can't. This is conjecture. They are just saying, we believe. And it's the same with the phone pings. They believe that his phone was switched off, when in reality, he could have just been in an area that doesn't have signal. Doesn't have signal. It was away from the property. They are telling you that he turned his phone off, or they believe he probably turned his phone off. And not only that, but the last thing, and probably most important thing of all, which is telling, is this here. And this is impact on effective law enforcement and public safety. This matter is in the investigative stage, and while criminal charges have been brought, those charges are not yet publicly known. Premature public disclosure of the details of this law enforcement investigation will create a serious and imminent threat to effective law enforcement and could result in the premature end of this investigation, which could create a threat to public safety. And that was a statement made by law enforcement themselves on the Idaho 4 case. So who can end an investigation? Law enforcement can end an investigation. They're the only people who can end an investigation. Nobody else. Law enforcement, they bring charges towards somebody. The only people who can change their mind on that is law enforcement until it goes through the process and someone's found guilty or not guilty. But if they want to stop it, why would law enforcement stop it? Why would that even be put out? And if this is just a job, a killing of one individual, nobody else involved, one individual goes into a house and does this crime, why would there still be an imminent threat to public safety? It doesn't make sense. But people are ignoring it all. Let me know down below where you are with it. And I'll catch you all later today.